When I was in 6th grade, I was in a band, clarinet. I wanted to play the saxophone, but Grandpa had the clarinet, so that's what it ended up being. The band instructor was a middle-aged woman, who I'm going to refer to as Miss Rond, as to protect her identity. Anyways, I didn't have a lot of friends, so I had a lot of extra lessons after school. After a while, she started offering me extra lessons at her house. Even then, that made me uncomfortable, and I refused. She was pretty persistent though, and would offer me at least once a week. Eventually, I just stopped going back for extra lessons. But one day Miss Fond announced that we had been invited to be in the Christmas parade downtown. I thought it was awesome and really great. The school is literally a year old. It's great for exposure and, best of all, fun for the kids. We were so excited. We all had extra rehearsals, and the school made sure we had whatever we needed. Permission slips were signed. Everything went perfectly. The day of the parade, we all meet at our designated area. As we get dropped off, Miss Fron tells the parents where to pick us up at the end, and her and some parade officials were the ones watching over us as they left. The parade starts, and everything goes smoothly. I was so nervous there could have been a 5-foot pileup, and I wouldn't have noticed. But at the end, everyone gets picked up, and I'm the last, left alone with Miss Frond. Miss Frond immediately grabs my hand after the last kid is out of sight and tells me I can call my mom from her house. And she starts booking it, me in tow. I had very little experience being on my own and didn't know how to act in this kind of situation. So despite the fact that I had been recently uncomfortable around her, I went along. Looking back, it probably didn't look that unusual to anyone, because she wasn't tall and I really shot up in the 6th grade, so it's not like I was being dragged. I kept up pretty well. I couldn't tell you where in particular she took me, but it was definitely further out than where everyone else parked. Her car is the only one in sight, and she starts a beeline towards it. It was one of those dark blue-green SUVs that pretty much everyone had in the late 90s. Suddenly, I hear my name being yelled behind me. I turn and see my mom, panting and sprinting towards us. Miss Fran's grip tightens, and she speeds up. Mom yanked me from Miss Fran's grip, and without a word, took me to her car, and we went home where she proceeded to fawn over me, which was confusing, because I was pretty much ignored 99% of the time. I had no idea what just happened. I never saw Miss Frond in school, or heard anything about her again. I don't even know her first name to look her up, and my family never spoke about it again. My teacher wouldn't leave me alone, even though he knew I was a minor. About 10 years ago, I used to live in a tiny town. It had a really small population, maybe 3,000 people max. Everyone knew who everyone was, or almost. I was around 16 or 17, and the owner of our local bar would let me get in. He knew who I was, because I saw him often while I worked, and didn't care that I was underage. So one night, I go out with my sister, who was 22. I noticed a guy, around 40, looking at me. My sister told me he used to be her history teacher, Mr. Tony. He quit the year he was supposed to teach me, so he never was my teacher. I figured he was staring at me because he wanted to know if I was one of his old students, or whatever. He never talked to me. My sister, our friends, and me enjoyed our night out. Once I got home from the bar, I saw that I had a friend request on Facebook from the teacher. I accept without any second thoughts. I couldn't guess this guy could be a weirdo. Mr. Tony starts talking to me, asking me what I do, where I work, and if I'm from out of town, since he never saw me before. I tell him no, because he left the school the year I would have been in his class. It was an okay talk, but still weird, because I was talking to an older guy at 2 a.m. There was no flirting at all. He then says he has something weird to tell me. You know, the night before this one, I had a dream. There was one of my American friends giving me a feather in her hand saying, "Set her free, set her free." When I saw you tonight and saw your feather tattoo on your arm, I knew it was meant to be. You want to come over sometime and drink some wine? First thing I did was tell him right away I was underage. and that I was sorry that me being at a bar misled him. I thanked him for his offer, but declined, of course. He tried to still chit-chat, but I was exhausted and extremely creeped out. For a few days following that night, he still tried to talk to me, but I never answered. One day he wrote to me that he came in early at my workplace, and that he was disappointed because he hoped he would see me. I didn't answer and I blocked him. A few months after that, there was a big event at a local beach for Canada Day. It was open for people of every age, so I went with my friend. We were sitting at a table behind the canteen, and there was no one around us. I noticed Mr. Tony with another guy walking in our direction. He was drunk and really excited about seeing me. His friend started talking to the girl I was with, and Mr. Tony does the same with me. I tell him right away to leave me alone and to start walking away from the table. As I began walking away, I turned around and saw that he was following me. I started walking back to her, and then he stops me. I was blocked by him. Behind me was the canteen. He asked me to kiss him. I told him no. He asked again. I screamed at him something about pedophilia, since I was still only 17. At this point, my back was literally leaning on the canteen wall, and he was uncomfortably too close to me. He took his hands, put them on my shoulders, and says, "It's not pedophilia if you consent." I got really mad and disgusted, pushed him, and ran to my friend, who was finally starting to realize that something was wrong. We ran away and lost Mr. Tony and his friend out of sight. We called my friend's mom to pick us up and told her what happened. She got to the beach as fast as she could. A few minutes later, as I was about to get in the car, I saw him coming towards me, saying he still wanted to chat. I told him to fuck off. I never saw him after that, and almost forgot about this story. Luckily, he never worked in a school again. Creepy middle school gym teacher. Mr. Carter was a freak. He wore sweatpants to class, and as he gawked at the girls running and playing in the gym, he would often sport an obvious erection. We all knew it, and called him names among ourselves, but somehow just accepted Mr. Carter was pervy. I was trying to get into the student's teacher program so I could check papers. Mr. Carter found out and told me he needed a student teacher. He told me that if I wanted the job, I would have to come to his office at lunchtime. My friends told me to stay away from him, but the gym was also our lunchroom, so I thought there would be way too many people around to try anything. When I got into his office, he told me I was more mature than most girls, and it was alright if I wanted to call him Bill. I was in the 7th grade and stupid, so I took it as a compliment instead of seeing the red flag that it was. Then he shut his office door. I knew there were lots of people outside the door, so I just asked him what the job entailed, since he had no papers to check and no chalkboards to clean. He hands me the attendance book and asks me to tally up the kids present each day. Then he said he was proud of me for being old enough to wear a bra. Stupidly, I told him I was not wearing a bra. He told me to take off my top so he could see for himself. I told him no, and had to fight to keep him from pulling my tube top up. He was blocking my way to his door, so I sat down and started tallying the names. But I had tears in my eyes. My heart was beating really fast. I was trying to figure out how to leave, when I felt him walk up behind me and start rubbing something hard across my hair. He kept telling me to turn around. I kept asking why. I don't know how many times he told me to turn around, but time seemed like it was in slow motion. I did figure out what he was rubbing on my hair, but I was too scared to break the fake impression that I didn't know what he was doing. Eventually, he just told me to leave. I walked to the door and felt like all the people in the lunchroom would keep me safe. Later that day, we were on the playground, and he decided to teach us how to catch a football. I used to wear my house key on a piece of yarn around my neck. When he threw the football at me, it seemed to go through my hands and hit my chest. It hit me so hard that it bent my key. Then I realized how mad he was that I didn't turn around. I told my best friend, who was in class with me, and showed her my key. She reminded me that she had told me to stay away from him, and she and I agreed he was scarier than we thought. From that point forward, we only referred to him as a scary man. My friend told me not to tell anyone, or he would lie, and everyone would believe him and not me. I stayed home for a week after that, pretending to be sick, scared to go to school and run into him. Even when I went back to school, I skipped gym and hung out with my math teacher, then my history teacher, who were both women. I never told my mom, but I did tell my daughters when they were in middle school, so they would never find themselves in that position. We talked about what to do if any teachers got weird with them. The thing that was most surprising, in retrospect, is that I was honestly more worried about the social awkwardness it caused, rather than being afraid for my own safety. Never underestimate what a child thinks about losing social cool points for peers discovering something embarrassing to their image and reputation. Warn your daughters and your sons about how to handle inappropriate teachers and authority behaviors.